Hello and welcome to another Developers Guild. My name is Mike Pavel, and today we have another very interesting Developers Guild. This time I think it would be even more into the tech, specifically about embedded wallets, MPC, and how to securely integrate it in your own app. MPC is a topic I personally like myself. So I am very curious of what we will be hearing today. Generally, what you will learn is what Para is in the first place. And for this, we have an amazing guest, namely Matt, who is also a DevRel at Para. So without further ado, let's welcome him to the stage. Hi, Matt.
Amazing. Thank you, Mike. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Really excited to present today about universal embedded wallets. And as Mike kind of teased here, how you can take advantage of Para's infrastructure to easily onboard users to the apps that you're building. I'll start with an intro. My name's Matt Zimmerman, very German last name. I live in the US and currently in San Francisco, but certainly have German heritage. Got to meet many of you during Berlin Blockchain Week a couple months ago, where I got to meet Carlo, follow up with Mike, and really excited about the community you all are building over there. At Para, I have been here for about a year and a half. I do a bit of everything. I think DevRel is a very broad term where I will often provide integration support for customers that are integrating Para into their applications. I am also often at conferences. Berlin Blockchain Week being a good example, was at FinTech DevCon last week, talking to fintechs about using stablecoins and infrastructure, but generally very customer facing, excited for any opportunity to help people onboard new users to Web3. Getting into more about Para, you can think of Para as the most comprehensive wallet and authentication suite for crypto applications. We'll talk a little bit more about how authentication combines with wallets, but on the technical level, Para leverages passkeys and MPC to provide robust and secure key management architecture. And Para also supports Solana in addition to EVM and Cosmos chains so that users can really have a unified account and a unified sign-in experience across all of Web3. And I'll share a little bit more what I mean about that as well. So first we'll talk about authentication. And I think that it's kind of important to take a look back at what we've learned over the past 40 plus years of the internet. And of course, 10 or 20 years ago, if any of you were using the internet at that point, you might recall that every app and every website had its own user database, its own user authentication mechanism, where you would typically provide an email address, set up a password, hopefully save that password somewhere secure. But a decade ago, everyone just used the same password on every app, which has kind of resulted in this world now where there's no such thing as privacy. And what this drove the industry towards is that a clear and strong preference for single sign-on experiences. For the users, it's one fewer password to manage, and for apps, they get much more rich data about these users if they're able to sign in with Google or sign in with Facebook or sign in with Discord, rather than just providing an email address and setting a password. And now it shift from more like the Web3 perspective, and what have we learned from auth in Web3 and specifically from 500 plus wallets? I think there's new wallets every day. Every time I look at a list, the number has gone up. And I think what we've really learned from this first wave of wallets in the past 5 to 10 years of Web3 adoption is that shared liquidity unlocks huge advantages. And this was never possible really in Web 2, where even if you sign in with a Google account and Google SSO, you don't have access to liquidity or account information that you can bring from one Google SSO app to another. But Web3 changes this, where we now have the ability to connect a wallet and an identity to multiple apps and bring our assets, identity, and reputation with us everywhere that we go in Web3. And this unlocks huge advantages. The other thing that I think we've learned from these wallets is that seed phrases continue to waste a lot of money. Wallets spend a lot of money to acquire customers. They view the seed phrase download screen and oftentimes churn. Seed phrases continue to be, I believe, the biggest friction point in Web3, and really what turns me off personally from like having my brother, sister, dad, or mom like use these apps in Web3, because the friction of downloading a browser extension and writing down words and securing those words somewhere safe is just really high and untenable for most people. And Para is solving this by providing an option for... Yes, please.
Did you want to show the presentation now? Because I don't see it. Was it supposed
it's not showing. I see. Thank you for flagging that for me. I was... there we go.
There we go.
So Para is the most comprehensive wallet and authentication suite for crypto applications. And we accomplish this by providing options for users to authenticate using both Web 2 sign-in options and Web 3 sign-in options. So you can see here that this is our standard web experience that can support sign-in with Google, Twitter, Apple, email, phone, or the Web 3 wallets that we all know and love. So now let's talk about wallets and like what are wallets and why do they own the Web3 experience? Wallets are a lot of things. There's a lot of different and I think really innovative technologies that go into a wallet and wallet infrastructure. And we've seen a lot of companies innovating around this over the last several years to make the Web3 onboarding experience so much easier. I'll add some clarity to what all of these things mean. I would ask for a show of hands who's used some of these things, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. First, I would propose that Web3 or that wallets are responsible for Web3's UX problem. Where I alluded earlier, this is like my big reservation in asking my friends and family to come on chain. And I think they are rightfully reserved to need things like backup and recovery for their wallets, wanting support if something goes wrong, wanting an easy signing experience on both web and mobile. And I think this is one of the biggest gaps today, where if you're using a Phantom app or a Soulflare app, both great apps, but if you want to sign a transaction in your browser, now you're switching between multiple apps and contexts, and deep linking works most of the time, but not all the time. And it really provides a high friction experience, especially for people who are used to Web 2 apps and like performing everything you need to do in the context of a single application without needing to switch contexts constantly. And how do we get here? This is where I'll start explaining a little bit more detail some of these technical achievements and technical advancements that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years, and then also explain how Para is leveraging these technologies to provide a comprehensive and easy way to onboard new users. It all started with TLS, basic encryption of a private key in a browser in the form of a burner wallet. some of you might remember this. This, I think, was the first wallet that I experienced, where you could easily generate private keys in the browser, not even really store them anywhere. And it allows you to create basically a burner wallet or ephemeral wallet that you can spin up very easily. And it's great for trying out new apps and trying something that's more of a like one and done experience. But these wallets are quite fragile and honestly quite unsafe, given that in most cases the users are not saving these private keys, certainly not storing them anywhere with a high level of security, and oftentimes cannot recover them. So from the burner wallet, we saw teams start adding OAuth, the familiar sign-in experiences that we mentioned earlier that the internet and internet users have come to expect everywhere. This example is from Dapper Labs. NBA Top Shot, I think, was one of the first and best examples of what we used to refer to as Web 2.5, where you have assets that exist on chain and accounts that exist on chain and private keys that are securing those accounts. But instead of the users being in control of those private keys, in this case, Dapper Labs was responsible for these private keys. So this created a more custodial wallet experience where the users could sign in with a Web 2 identifier or Web 2 social account, but were not able to take those assets with them to any other app or even to a wallet that they own the keys to. And then came a wave of embedded wallets powered by Shamir's Secret Sharing. Shamir's Secret Sharing is the technology that's used by Privy and many other embedded wallet providers that enables users to create a self-custodial account using one of these Web 2 sign-in options. This gave apps the ability to have much more control over the user experience, where users didn't need to download a mobile app, write down words, or download a browser extension and write down words. They didn't need to see a seed phrase anymore as a part of the onboarding flow. And these wallets are great for single app experiences. And I can go a little bit further on what I mean by that. But first, we'll take a slight step back and talk about Shamir's Secret Sharing a bit more conceptually. What this does is it generates the private key in the same manner as a standard EOA, and then breaks the private key into multiple shares. And Shamir's Secret Sharing improves on the security of a seed phrase under your mattress in that it distributes where these key shares are stored. So now the private key is no longer all stored in one place. It's divided and then recombined, reconstructed in order to sign transactions. If you've ever signed transactions, you know that your key needs to be presented to the chain. And this is how Shamir's Secret Sharing recombines or reconstructs these keys in order to sign transactions. The challenge with this approach, of course, is that now the app that is recombining the keys have access to the keys. So as a result, when you have a multi-app scenario where as a user, I'm likely interacting with multiple applications, I'm probably signing in with the same email address, but instead of that email address signing me into the same account across all of these apps, now I have 3 different accounts across all of these apps, where I sign in with the same email address, but generate a wallet that's unique to that application, and then on-ramp or onboard from zero each time. So as a result, there's no shared liquidity, either in the ecosystem for the apps that are building in the ecosystem or for the users that are using multiple apps in the ecosystem. Each wallet can only be used once or with one app, and this results in repeated onboarding steps, fragmented liquidity, a fragmented sense of identity and reputation, which can be really beneficial for things like marketing and airdrop campaigns. But But ultimately, the biggest drawback is that more friction is going to increase churn and mean that it's harder for you to keep users in your ecosystem or in your application. So this is in contrast to what Para uses, which is MPC and passkeys. We leverage MPC in order to offer universal embedded wallets. And what do we mean by this? Our wallets are usable across all applications. So if you have 3 apps, the user signs in with the same email on each of them, they access the same account, the same identity, the same reputation, much like they do with Phantom or Soulflare. But now, instead of needing a browser extension and a seed phrase, I've just signed in with an email address and a passkey. We've been using passkeys for since before I joined, a couple of years at least, and found that they provide a really significant improvement in user experience, where the devices are compatible, and there are some, especially in developing nations, where older Android devices are more common and passkey support isn't there. And we have alternative options for passwords and PINs in order to secure accounts on older devices as well. And diving in a little bit deeper on multi-party computation and how it's different. Similarly, there are multiple shares for a given private key. But the biggest difference between Shamir's secret sharing and multi-party computation is that MPC is able to generate these shares in a distributed way and continuously hold them in separate locations, so that not only is the key storage distributed, but the key generation and transaction signing are also performed in a distributed way. So the result is that applications never need to access a full private key and never can see the private key, and the users only see the private key if they request to export it. And given that the MPC provides a higher level of security than I think it's safe to say most, if not all, users are providing for themselves, we see much lower rates of users wanting to export their private key and take it into their own wallet or security environment. Therefore, removing the seed phrase really from the Web3 user experience. Clicking another layer deeper on how Para uses distributed MPC, we leverage threshold signature signing using an open source implementation of the DKLS19 MPC algorithm. All of our accounts that are generated using any of our SDKs are a 2 of 2 MPC system. This means that there are 2 key shares, and both key shares are required in order to sign transactions. One of these keys is stored, one of these shares is stored on the user's device, protected by that passkey, password, or PIN. And then the other key share is stored in the cloud, protected by, encrypted by a key stored in hardware security. And then the passkeys provide the additional layer of protection on the user share, and we have the ability to refresh keys in case the user loses their device and the passkey that's on it and needs to generate a new key share while maintaining access to the same address and the same assets. And then how does this look in the multi-app scenario, where instead of a user signing into 3 apps and having 3 different accounts, they sign into 3 different apps and they see one address, the same account, the same underlying assets, so that you can build the composable experiences that Web3 uniquely enables, where I can go, say, buy Bonk on Jupe and then go to Let's Bonk to launch a creator coin, and then go to Bonk Rewards and stake, instead of needing to either A, use a Phantom, or B, create 3 new accounts and bridge between them. Now I can sign in with the same email to Para on all of the apps and leverage the same assets and identity and reputation. And liquidity. I think liquidity is probably the most important aspect of ecosystem success, and unifying that liquidity so that it can be more capital efficient is what distributed MPC and universal embedded wallets enable. Where you have this world where now you can SSO into all of Web3 and unify the liquidity across all of Web3. And with lower friction comes lower churn, more efficiency, and ideally profitability, kind of a uncommon term in Web3. But I think we're moving towards this world where apps have a stronger perspective on how they generate revenue and what the customer acquisition cost is versus customer lifetime value. And unified liquidity helps us get there. So I won't go into too much detail on the rest of these things, but I think that there are a few components that can also be really beneficial as a part of this wallet and universal wallet stack. And starting with account abstraction. Account abstraction has been really popular in EVM for the last several years, and starting to see it gain popularity in Solana now as well. Simply from a developer experience perspective, it's easier to use a smart account framework rather than building features like, how do I sponsor gas? How do I have multiple signers on an account or on a smart account? How do I bundle transactions together? These are some of the things that account abstraction enables you to do. And Para is partnered with Swig in the Solana ecosystem to have in integration examples and an integration approach that allows you to very easily not only launch MPC powered accounts, but now those MPC powered accounts can also be owners on a Swig smart account, so that you can do things like easily sponsor gas, easily bundle transactions, even create atomic like bundled transactions. To really streamline both the user experience in interacting with your app, but also the developer experience in offering these features. Similarly, you can, Para is very flexible in the number of factors you can have associated with your account, so that if you want to, say, continue as guest, you can spin up an account without any social identifier. And similarly, you can use Para pre-generated wallets to generate an account for any social identifier. And then at the point where you want the user to verify that social and really take ownership and make it a recoverable account, that at that point, they can verify their email or phone or social and set up a passkey. You can also add an additional, I think of it as really like a third layer of authentication, where you can have an SMS verification or an OTP code sent for transactions above a certain threshold or meeting specific criteria. And then permissions is really the next area of innovation for Para, where many of you have probably already started thinking about this as you're imagining a world where I can take a social powered account to many apps on many chains. Now it becomes an interesting question of like what those apps can alter in my account. Say I sign up to an account on Camino, I deposit some assets that I want to just like let it ride and generate some yield. Then when I go and connect my account to, say, Pump Fund, I might not want Pump Fund to be able to change the positions that I've set on Camino in order to allow me to ape into some meme coins. So we are building and rolling out a robust permissionings framework for managing this, so that when users authenticate into a new app with a wallet that they've created on a prior app, Now the second and subsequent applications need to surface a request to the user for what types of transactions they want to execute and which assets or series of assets they are looking at using for those transactions. And this enables apps to do things like dollar cost averaging or stop loss orders or automate yield farming. Really any type of on-chain action that you might want to perform or execute after the user has left their screen. This is somewhat tangential, but I always think it's so interesting that I wish there were metrics around what percent of on-chain transactions are occurring because someone is sitting at a computer pressing a button. I would venture to guess that number is like somewhere in the 90s, like maybe 98% of on-chain transactions are executed how I would call manually. Whereas if you think about like the traditional finance space, I imagine it's the opposite, where a high number of transactions are occurring in an automated way, and more of the manual transactions are like cash. I might guess. But anyways, a little bit tangential. That's more about permissions and linking additional accounts. This is also an area that is often overlooked with how Web3 and wallets have evolved to date. Most apps have gotten used to the fact that the only identifier they have for each of their customers is a wallet address. What can you do with that wallet address? Unfortunately, very little. You can't send them offers. You can't target them for promotions. You can't really reach out to your users in any way. So by encouraging use of social powered accounts and linking additional socials to these social powered accounts, apps have the opportunity to build a much more comprehensive view of who their users are. And Para provides additional analytics around how users are signing into your apps. Are they using Web2 identifiers? Are they using Discord or Twitter or Telegram or Facebook? Are they using Web3 wallets? Which Web3 wallets are they using? And through these linked accounts, you can now create targeted marketing campaigns and also reward your users for, say, creating an account and noticing they're also in your Discord server or in your Telegram group or follow you on Twitter. You can create campaigns around how your users are interacting with you and your brand. So in summary, universal embedded wallets enable one account for all liquidity. And I'm proposing this as a bit of a shift in thinking away from one account per app, but also away from one account per chain. And I think we've all seen over the past 6 to 12 months, all wallets starting to take this omni-chain approach where now you can use Phantom on EVM and you can even use MetaMask on Solana. And I think that this makes sense, and we'll continue to see this where users will download Phantom because they want to interact with Web3 or download MetaMask because they want to interact with Web3 and not so much consciously making the decision that I want to use Solana and let me find the best wallet for Solana, or I want to use Ethereum, heaven forbid. And what this unified liquidity enables is not just easy access to on-chain apps using socials, but the opportunity and ability to onboard once and transact everywhere, where it's much more similar to the MetaMask experience, but without the friction of signing up and downloading MetaMask. And unified liquidity accelerates growth. It enables ecosystem teams to focus on building great apps instead of sourcing great liquidity. It enables users to focus on what apps they want to use rather than how to use them. And this unlocks great benefits for growth, but also unlocks great benefits for understanding your users and monetizing the users that you already have. In terms of next steps and like where you can go from here, I would recommend you check out docs.getpara.com. It's also where this QR code links to. And there we have integration guides for every framework that you might need. We support web with the modal experience that I've had in a couple of these slides, where it's super easy to just add the modal, support both Web 2 natives and Web 3 natives in the same experience. And that's supported with React, Next, Vite. You can build a PWA. We were actually discussing internally, and I'm curious if anyone might have a perspective on PWAs. I feel like PWAs were really popular like 6 to 12 months ago, but lately we've been seeing a lot more activity on our native mobile frameworks, where we support React Native, Flutter, Expo, Swift. We have Kotlin coming soon. And I think we've seen a really significant shift in perspective amongst crypto builders in the last maybe 6 to 9 months, where there's a lot more optimism around being able to get apps approved by the app stores. Whereas I think a year or 2 years ago, there was a lot of pessimism around this, in the sense that there's almost nothing you could do to get your apps approved. Now we've seen teams like Jupe and Pump and Moonshot get apps in both app stores, and it's giving developers a lot more confidence. And I would encourage you all to think of it the same way. There are definite paths to getting your apps approved, and in a lot of cases, it's not even taking very much time. You're able to get an app in the app store in the matter of a few days. And of course, with the recent launch of the Seeker, there's clear opportunities to get your app into the hands of a lot of early adopters, especially on the Solana mobile app store. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have support for server frameworks as well. We see these useful in a variety of use cases. I would say the two biggest ones being, if you're building a mobile app and distributing it in a part of the world where you expect connectivity speeds might not be very high, then it makes sense for many teams to use our mobile SDKs to authenticate users into the mobile app, but then pass the session to the server, so that when the user wants to execute something, the server can do this with much lower latency and higher speed, not dependent on the user's local device connectivity. The other scenario where server frameworks are very useful is if you are looking to have more control over transaction signing while the user's not in the session. Or the case may be that there's not even really a user for this wallet, especially as we explore agentic use cases and enabling agents to go transact autonomously on chain. Server frameworks, the server SDK works really well for those types of use cases. Now you can spin up a wallet for this agent, and that agent can sign transactions without needing the concept of like a session that they're authenticating into. Last thing, I'll leave it here, is that we are offering 1,200 monthly active users completely free. If you sign up at developer.getpara.com, you should instantly get access to this. If not, you can feel free to ping me. But this is an offer that we're rolling out and really excited to make available to all of you today, where you can start using Para, and the first 1,200 users are free. There are even a couple of additional benefits that I'll highlight here, where by default, the 1,200 users includes both embedded and external wallets. We refer to, say, Phantom, Soulflare, other browser extensions or mobile apps as external wallets. You'll notice this in the docs as well. And if, say, you have 1,000 people that are connecting their external wallets and only 200 that are using socials, you can turn off the analytics around the external wallet connections and exclude them from your Para billing. And as a result, now you have 1,200 users that all can use social sign-in in a given month before you need to start paying the Para starter plan at $200 a month. So this is intended to give you a lot of flexibility as you're thinking about who's your target audience. Is it the Web3 natives or is it the Web2 natives? Maybe it's both, and you can provide support for both easily with the same modal. So I'll pause there. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mike, if you have any, or if anyone in the chat has any. I've been looking at the comments here, and I don't think I see any, but let me know.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much. Also, I think the point that people are able to get this discounts to work on their app is already some great news, specifically when we think about the upcoming hackathon, which is nearly coming. It's right in front of the doorstep, I think, in the next month. So definitely, if you guys are willing to integrate some wallet infrastructure and you are like hooked by what Para is doing, then definitely check this one out. And yeah, as you mentioned in the chat, I haven't seen much going on yet, but just for everyone watching, feel free to type your comments or questions now, and we will work through them. I also noted some of them down because I'm also very familiar with Shamir Secret Sharing and MPC, and I like how you describe the whole workflow from first OAuth and then all the way to MPC, passkeys and so on. And my specific question would be here. We've seen, or like what I've seen in the space is that there are lots of different wallet providers like Privy or Web3 Auth and so on. And there's clearly a difference between real MPC and what some wallet providers market as MPC, which is like, I don't know if you're familiar with that, because like you said it as there is the true MPC, which is calculating on each party. And then there is the Shamir Secret Sharing, which some people talk about as MPC. And like my question here would be, the MPC that you're using, is it the real MPC, meaning that if one node gets a task to sign a transaction, for example, it's like still encrypted in a way that passing from one to another is still like just the computation wise, right? Or how do you manage this internally?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Our implementation of MPC is intended to be maximally distributed so that the key generation happens on different machines and the transaction signing process happens on different machines so that the key material is never recombined or exposed. It cannot be exposed because it is not being recombined. And the only thing that's happening is the computation required in order to sign these transactions. You'll definitely find different flavors of MPC as you explore the wallet landscape. I think the most popular, or maybe the biggest headlines user of MPC is probably Fireblocks, which many of you may be familiar with. They provide institutional custodian services to, I think, probably all of, if not most of, the biggest crypto institutions in the world. And prior to Para and some of our competitors, the MPC was really only used in enterprise use cases, and oftentimes in a highly configurable environment, where MPC, I mentioned that Para is using a 2 of 2 MPC system, but MPC as a framework can be kind of infinitely configurable. Many MPC solutions allow for you to do things like a 2 of 3 or a 3 of 5 or a 7 of 8. What we found is that in allowing for this complexity also degrades the user experience, where now you have to wait on 2 or 3 or 5 systems to coordinate in order to generate accounts and sign transactions. And a 2 of 2 system allows us to have and deliver a much more performant experience, where you can create accounts and sign transactions in a very low latency way. If you're looking for a highly configurable MPC solution, there are solutions that would probably be a better fit for you than Para. But if you're curious to learn more, I'd be happy to chat more about what those things might look like. But hopefully that gives you some insight into how we made the design decisions that we did and how we landed on the 2 of 2 system as being the best combination of user experience, performance, configuration.
Yeah, you're definitely right when it comes to like compromising through different metrics, because MPC, from my opinion, is like one of the, it goes into a safety mechanism, right? Or in some sort of safety spectrum. And as you mentioned correctly, is that you were focusing on user experience in the first place as well, like simultaneously with using MPC. So I think compromising it in a way that you have like a 2 of 2 mechanism instead of like 3 of 6 or something, reduces latency, and then, as you mentioned, improves usability. So there's always some drawbacks to technology like this, and yeah, but still, the tech is great. I really like how you presented the whole journey of authentication and how you can sign on chain. And that leads to my next question is, have you seen like any apps where Para is used, like where you see that Para is most optimally integrated, where you see that exactly your use case is fitting the best?
I really love Celio, Xelio. This is a stablecoin payments app that we are working with in the Solana ecosystem. They're focused on delivering an SMS banking experience in developing nations. They are leveraging Para's pre-generated wallets, which is kind of a headless wallet option, so that they can spin up wallets for users based on their phone number. And then as users are texting, I think they're using Twilio on the back end, they're moving money with stable coins. And I think that this is an incredible demonstration of how easy and seamless wallets can be, and how easy it can be for people to start interacting with stable coins without needing even a smartphone.
It's a very great use case. Xelio specifically was actually incubated, or like they started in the last hackathon in Superteam Germany. So I also talked to the team in Berlin. Great guys there. Definitely a very nice use case. And yeah, also
great guys there. I keep trying to convince them to come to Mountain DAO. If anyone's thinking about coming to Mountain DAO in Salt Lake City, it's the entire month of August, and always some of the best builders and most talented builders in the Solana ecosystem in Salt Lake City.
Definitely check it out if you're nearby. And just one thing, because you mentioned that people can reach out to you, so just so we have it on the video, where people where can people talk to you in the best way? Is it through the website? Is there some contact form or directly through DMs? How do you work the most?
You can DM me at ZIMM0X. It's on all of these slides. There it is. Yeah,
Perfect.
on both Twitter and Telegram. You can also find me at matt@getpara.com. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, any issues, or just want to talk about how Para might fit into whatever you're building. I'd be happy to chat.
Yeah, I'm always impressed how all those big founders or bigger DevRels in the space are open to accept DMs. It's like rarely in a regular space that you see it. So definitely, guys, if you are working or are wanting to build with Para, take this opportunity. As I always say, take every opportunity you can that helps you. So thank you for that. And yeah, I see we still have a couple of more minutes. What I always like to ask in this Dev Guild as like a last question, maybe if people are still typing their questions or want to think about something. My question would be to you personally, Matt, if you want to answer it. How was your journey to Web3? Like, did you start from the beginning in Web3, or how was the transition for you? And how did you end up here?
It's a great question. I think I'm too old to have started in Web3. I have always been really interested in technology and really a lens for innovation, looking for how new technologies can enable me and us to do things faster and better. I started my career in fintech, finance, I guess more specifically. I was working for JP Morgan Chase, one of the biggest banks in the world, implementing risk and regulatory controls kind of in the shadow of the financial crisis. I spent a few years in banking, went into consulting, and then started working for a startup called Blend, which provides consumer lending experiences to banks and credit unions, where you can apply online for a loan in a white labeled experience powered by Blend. I was at Blend from 2016 to 2020, and late 2019 I started exploring crypto. I've kind of instantly slipped and fell, kept running down the crypto rabbit hole, but it all started with Aave and Compound for me. I had spent 4 years of my career selling software to banks that helped them save time originating loans. Pretty simple value prop. Most of these lenders measure the time to originate loans in days, oftentimes weeks. And so when I found the ability to deposit my wrap my Bitcoin, deposit it in Aave, and take out a collateral-backed loan in approximately 10 seconds, this blew my mind. I pretty quickly came to the conclusion that DeFi was going to greatly disrupt TradFi, and pivoted to crypto in 2020. Interestingly, at that point, and the same might be true now, basically everyone that I trusted and worked with in my career up to that point told me that crypto was a scam and I should not quit my job and go work in crypto. Thankfully, I didn't listen to them. And I think now, 5 years later, what's really exciting to me is seeing these two worlds kind of converge, where for the longest time, and comments from my former colleagues, I think reflect this, fintech wanted nothing to do with crypto. I've always kind of felt like crypto is a subset of fintech. Everything that we do is inherently financial, and it's certainly technology. And now I think we're starting to see fintechs, it's a loose and broad term, but not just like start having interest in crypto, but actually looking at crypto as infrastructure that can enable them to run a more profitable business. For example, underwrite loans and originate loans much more efficiently than the ways they've done it in the past. And especially with stable coins and the stable coin regulation that's come through, I think we're going to see more and more fintechs really embrace crypto, and starting to feel like my career is these two halves are becoming a whole, and I can see fintech and crypto kind of merging into one.
It's like, if not even one of the highest pre-crypto careers I've heard of, like working with JP Morgan and being a consultant, as you mentioned, all of that. Definitely a way of seeing some other perspective. What I mostly see that people are working somewhere in Web 2 and then sliding their way in Web 3, but you like fully committed from the regular tech to DeFi, which is great to see. And now being at Para is great stuff. And would you say that's how it worked out for you, is how you imagined it to become, or were you thinking of rather going in the compound or other way?
I don't think I had a very strong like perspective 5 or so years ago on like where this Web3 journey would lead me. I definitely could not have imagined it would have led me down the path and the opportunities that I've had. I think I started my crypto journey much like most people as a bit of a Bitcoin maxi. I spent a little bit of time as a bit of an ETH maxi. Then I spent a couple of years in the Polkadot ecosystem, where I felt like Gavin Wood and the Parity team had already figured out what the Ethereum endgame is, and they were already building it. And then after leaving Polkadot and before I joined Para, and kind of why I joined Para is I came to this conclusion that it doesn't really make sense to be a chain maxi. And if anything, I consider myself to be an interop maxi, where I think multiple chains can win. I enjoy using multiple chains. I know this is a kind of Solana leaning ecosystem, and I definitely have a preference for Solana, like as a consumer. And if I were building a consumer app, I can't imagine even considering another chain. But I do believe that there are use cases that will find product market fit on non-Solana chains. And I think it's really important that users can easily access any on-chain app without it needing to feel like I'm onboarding to a completely new ecosystem. And that's where I am really passionate about the solutions that Para's offering to make it easy for users to interact with any app on any chain and any token anywhere with an email address or a phone number, rather than needing to feel like I'm onboarding to this completely new version of the web.
Yeah, I'm also on your side that there will always be multiple chains, and then we should find a way of interoperability instead of just going for one and that's it. That's like a trend that we see. I think the interoperability thing just arose like 1 or 2 years ago, so it's pretty new, but this is where we are going into the future. So definitely the use case you provided is a great thing, again, for developers. Don't miss it out. If you are part of the Superteam Germany community, then you know Xilio, Matt was talking about them. And feel free to, if you are watching it later on YouTube, to rewind, if it's even possible later on, to scan the QR code and then get the discount. Just quick look in the comments. I see there's no specific stuff, but you can DM Matt directly if you have any questions power related. And other than that, just one thing, would you have any alpha for us, Matt? Anything that you think people should think about while building not only on Solana, but on cross-chain stuff?
I had a long conversation with our mobile dev yesterday, and I imagine a lot of you are thinking about mobile apps, especially with the recent conclusion of the Solana mobile hackathon. And I would propose that mobile apps should not, Web3 mobile apps should not connect to external wallets. And if you're building a React Native, a Swift, a Flutter app, you should consider not allowing users to connect to Phantom or a Soulflare or any other wallet. And I say this because if you're building a native mobile app, you're building with the intention of mass adoption, of everyone who has access to the App Store on Google or Apple to download your app and interact with your app. And if the first step in interacting with your app is to actually switch to a different app, then you are reducing the probability that that user completes sign up and uses your app. Now, I know that there's an entire audience of people who very much enjoy the Phantom Soulflare experience. And I think it's important to continue to allow for Web3 natives to interact with your Web3 apps. But you can do this with a web app and simply encourage the user to open their Phantom mobile wallet, and in the browser on Phantom, you can navigate to your app and support external wallets via the web experience on mobile. And I think that this is better because now, in both cases, your users can interact with your app without leaving the app that they've opened. Ideally, that's your app, and they're interacting with your game or your trading experience or your tokens in your native app. But maybe they prefer the Phantom or Soulflare experience and they're doing it in that app and in that browser, and that's fine too. But as soon as you're asking users to switch contexts and hopefully find their way back to your app, I think you're missing the boat. So that's my alpha hot off a conversation with our mobile dev about this yesterday.
I definitely see the point there with the switching apps. I personally also hated to switch through different apps when interacting with stuff on mobile, which is horrible. This would be lowering the threshold. So yeah, thanks for the alpha, Matt. I think mobile devs will take notice of that. And yeah, also, thank you very much for this dev guild. It was very nice to have you here. And yeah, also thanks
much for having me.
Yeah, of course. It was a great session. Maybe in the future, if you have some new products that you will release or some different mechanics, we might see each other again.
Absolutely. We definitely have some things coming in the pipeline that I'd love to come back and share with the Superteam Germany. So thanks so much for having me, and certainly hope to do it again soon.
Always. Thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Sounds good.